our services. It's much appreciated. I want to revisit for just a couple minutes these ideas of God's name and building relationship with God, both from Moses and from the people and towards the people. And as we start the book of Exodus, I always find myself a little bit shell shocked in a way of that I find myself asking, how exactly did we get here? After making our way through the entire book of Genesis and all this character driven plot and all our own unpacking of each of these forefathers and foremothers and their actions and their motivations and their emotions and their feelings, it's kind of hard to believe that it's all in the rear view mirror. And I always find myself just a little bit floored that we move from these great and venerated characters to Moses, this seemingly timid shepherd who's lost in the desert, and his transformation into a guide both for the people and for us through the whole rest of the Torah. And what I find so striking, and maybe most striking, about the scene at the burning bush is, of course, Moses' question to God in chapter 3, verse 13, when the people ask, "Who sent me? What should I tell them is your name?" This is a stark departure from the interactions between God and humanity that we've seen previously. Up until now, no one is really asking God questions or offering challenges to God. God speaks and they listen. This even is applicable to the pretty minor characters in the book of Genesis, the ones who are mentioned as kind of recognizing in other than challenging Abraham and Isaac's power, they recognize that their God is the one true God and just kind of back off. But as we know, that is not Moses's MO. Moses is always striving to know God better, to know God's name, to see God's face. And knowing that, in this instance, is Moshe really concerned with how the people will react? Will the people really be the one asking to hear God's name? Or is this something that Moshe wants to know for himself? After all, on the surface, his question doesn't make a ton of sense. If Moshe goes down to Egypt and is speaking to the people and declaring that the God of their ancestors sent him, and even name dropping Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, at that point, you have to believe that people would either believe him or they wouldn't. Being able to mention God by a different name doesn't seem like it would have a great impact. And I think that this is, in fact, Moshe's first attempt to know God more closely than anyone else will ever get to. But if Moshe's question is a little bit odd, but very direct, God's answer is anything but. Eheyeh asher eheyeh, ko tomar livnei Yisrael, eheyeh shlachani aleichem. My name is Eheyeh asher eheyeh. You shall say this to the Israelites, Eheyeh sent me to you. What does this cryptic phrase, Eheyeh asher eheyeh, mean? In English, it translates to, I am that I am, or maybe I am who I am, or maybe again, I will be what I will be. They're all within that kind of gray area of translating Hebrew phrases and Hebrew grammar into English. Moshe has a deep desire to know God, to get some sort of working definition, and what God gives him is really anything but. So what is this mysterious name of God, Eheyeh asher eheyeh? Is God telling Moshe this name as an evasion of Moses' question, or in order to give him an informative answer? We all know that despite the absolute oneness of the Jewish God, God has many, many names. Most don't translate well into English or Hebrew. And the most powerful of these names, as we spoke about earlier in referencing the Tetragrammaton, aren't even pronounceable. What we say in our liturgy as Adonai is a placeholder for the Yud He Vav He in Hebrew, the English Yahweh, which in its original is never vocalized. So the fact that here God's name is given as a sentence and one we can understand actually makes this name a treasure trove of information. Rashi, the great medieval commentator, cites as an explanation a dialogue taken from the Babylonian Talmud, a midrashic story, if you will. God's explanation for Eheyeh Asher Heyeh, I will be what I will be, is that I will be with the people Israel in this suffering as I will be with them in future suffering. This explanation comes with a powerful long-term commitment to God to act as Redeemer and Comforter to the people for all time. However, Moshe, again pushing back a little bit, responds, well, God, maybe given the circumstances, we can just focus on this present moment. Given the fact that the people are suffering now, let's maybe go ahead and fix that one and not remind them that there will be more suffering later. And this is given as the explanation for the second half of the verse, in which God tells Moses to say to the people, Eheyeh sent me. Just, I am sent me. It's an ingenious commentary, one that builds both God's commitment to the people over the long term, while also emphasizing what makes Moshe who he is, someone who speaks up and talks back, an assertive advocate for the people. And it's in relating Eheyeh Asher Heyeh to Moshe and to the people where I think we can glean the true significance of this name. And I'm going to read a passage from the great Dr. Aviva Gottlieb Zornberg, who puts words to this much better than I could ever hope to. From Moses' viewpoint, this name of God is no name at all. It yields nothing constant, nothing knowable through all vicissitudes. It is contingent, the very figure of human desire, a fluid, dynamic name. It expresses the first person form of God's name, addressing the human, involved in dialogue with the human. It changes constantly as human beings find and lose relationship with God. Yes, God is completely ineffable and unknowable, but God is also in relationship with Moshe and in relationship with the people, and can be exactly what we each need God to be. And on the flip side of that, I think it also gives us permission to be who we are. We are divine. We are a reflection of the divine. We are built in God's image. And so we have some of this, I will be what I will be in us as well. Remember, Moses isn't just asking to know more about God. He's also trying to find out more about himself and the people. He's also asked, who am I to lead them out? And he's asking, who are they to not believe in me and in you? And the answer to all of the above questions is ultimately, Eheyeh Asher Eheyeh. It will be what it will be. I, God, am powerful and merciful, but sometimes vengeful and jealous. You, Moses, are a great leader, but sometimes reactionary and too quick to act. And the people are beloved people, but they are flawed. And the story of the rest of the Torah is developing relationships within the guidelines of I am who I am. or we are who we are? And how can we make the most out of that honesty and vulnerability to be able to move forward together?